Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episodes and we will discuss about today actually we have a debate and we have our world famous debaters, uh, Professor Rob and Professor Ching. Today's parliament, actually open parliament, we have our government side. Uh, our prime ministers is Professor Rob. Our opposition side, Professor Ching. First, I would like to give chance our honorable prime minister for today's parliament, Professor Rob Enderley.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. The government proposes that children should not have access to smartphones, and we have a number of reasons for that. First, they alter the parent-child relationship. They introduce concepts the parents may not want to introduce to their children. They're basically a window into the internet. And because they're always with the child, it's very difficult to monitor the children's behavior on the web. The end result is the child may be reading or finding out about things that disagree with what their parents are saying, whether they're well-founded or not. And the end result is it weakens the parent-child relationship because it removes that authority from the child by way of maybe false information on the smartphone and an inability to tell the difference. Number two, it limits their creative minds. It kind of puts them in a box where they're constantly consuming, but they're not creating. When they're young, children are developing their capabilities to live life when they're adults. And if we stilt those capabilities, we will limit their potential as they grow up. And smartphones sadly do that. Because they are so entertainment oriented, they can take the children's development off track and make it so they're less creative and less capable of dealing with the world as it develops. Number three, it causes them to get less sleep. Smartphones can be very addictive, and we know that children will use them well into the night when their parents aren't watching. And the end result is they're going to get less sleep. And we know sleep is a major problem with children already. They're not getting enough sleep. They're falling asleep in classrooms. They're not able to pay attention or maintain concentration because of a lack of sleep. And smartphones sadly contribute to that lack of sleep. And number four, it doesn't give kids the time to reflect or learn about the consequences of their actions. We know that children's brains don't develop to a point where they really understand consequences until they're into their 20s. The smartphone and actually unmonitored access to the web is really where the problem resides. Allows kids to misbehave but not pay the consequences of that misbehavior, and thus they are not learning consequences and to prepare for those consequences. They're thinking that consequences may not exist, and that's already a problem that children have. They just don't get consequences, and that's why they get into significant problems that adults may not. Smartphones exacerbate that problem and train the child the consequences don't matter, which is going to come back and bite them in their hindquarters when they become adults. Number five, it impedes their ability to learn. The researchers have indicated that smartphones are detrimental to the child's overall development, social and economic development. They lock them in a box. They stay on their smartphones. They aren't interacting, and it doesn't really help them learn. It's providing information, but without context. And without context, they're not able to learn or learn how to learn, which becomes a problem. It actually inhibits their ability to consume information and apply that information to their lives and make better decisions. As mentioned, number six, it causes addiction. Kids get addicted to smartphones. You can see them walking down the street. They're not watching where they're going. They're completely engaged with the device. They're not looking at people around them. They're not being safe. They're stepping in front of traffic. It's very addictive, and introducing addictive behavior in a child could have dire consequences when they get to be adults and they don't know how to fight that addictive behavior. I'm not saying it's an entry drug it's an entry level to drugs, but it does reinforce addictive behavior, and in itself it is addictive. And again, probably not something we should be introducing to children. It can have a negative impact, number seven, on the child's mental health. We know that smartphones alter the structure of the brain. We haven't yet traced that to any overall detrimental health effects. Remember, smartphones haven't been around that long. The children that are coming up today with smartphones, we will know that impact on their brains and capability when they get to be in their 20s and 30s. And we've got to wait till they get to their 20s and 30s to find out what's going on. But we already know that the heavy smartphone use leads to depression and anorexia as children use the smartphone apps to compare themselves to other children, become depressed, and had eating disorder issues that have been significant and tracked back to smartphone and unmonitored internet use. And really, the problem is as much unmonitored internet use as it is the device itself, but it's very hard to monitor and supervise a device that's always on the child's body. It's much different if you've got a computer in a room and you can monitor and oversee what the child is doing on the web and maybe get ahead of some of the problems. It's been indirectly, number 8, connected to obesity. It doesn't lead to exercise. It's very hard to exercise with a smartphone. And it leads children to be kind of couch potatoes and not exercise well or often. And the end result is exacerbating our issue with childhood obesity and overall eating disorders. I mentioned anorexia before. Number 9, it causes behavior problems. It's spending over 2 hours a day on a smartphone by a child in studies have been connected to behavioral disorders. Particularly attention deficit problems. That they're moving to item. They're not staying on any item at a given point in time. It's stimulating their brain, and it makes it very hard for them to develop the kinds of skills they need to study, to work, to do the kinds of things they need to earn a living, because it develops an attention deficit disorder for them simply because it's providing so many different things to entertain them and to stimulate their brains, and they become addicted to that stimulation, and they have a hard time pulling back from it as they age. And finally, number 10, it tends to desensitize children to violence. The web is a very violent place. You've got predators, you've got news items, we've got wars. And of course, we've got very violent games, and the end result is children, if they're constantly surrounded by these items, it desensitizes them to violence and raises the probability that they themselves will be more violent as they become adults. And one thing we don't need right now is more violence in our communities, and smartphones with children do exacerbate that underlying problem and make them, at very least, less sensitive to violence and potentially more likely to commit violence. So those are the 10 reasons we'll open with why smartphones shouldn't be provided to children.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for today's Parliament. So, as it is open debate and Asian format debate, all of the speaker gets time to do debate for 3 times. So, first round, Professor Rob already finished. Now, I request opposition leader from today's Parliament, Professor Ching.
I would give you some my general feeling about this whole thing. You see, this issue deal with the members of society, okay, and also it's a big concern to me, okay, because I'm very much interested in the development of the people in the society, in other words, the human resource. Okay, the first question we need to ask is who are smarter, the children or the adults? The children can learn much faster, but they have less knowledge. Okay, each side has an advantage. Okay, so this address the society has not addressed. Also, the second point is value of a person depends on knowledge. Okay, today we have so much knowledge. Even a child is much, much more valuable than in the past. And if they acquire this knowledge. The third point is, this access to the free access would diversify a society into a wide range from which the society will tap the best among us. Okay, this is 3 basic points I make. Now let me just address the 10 points the Rod raised. Okay, I never take notes, but Rod, I did it for you because you have 10 points. Okay, the first point, weaken the relationship between parents and children, or between adult and children. Is that good or bad? Okay, in some way, obvious you find something bad. Okay, but in some way, it's really, really good for the growth of society. Okay, what we really don't want is the children to be exact like their parents. The society will never improve. Okay, the young people should be better than the adults. Okay, this is the first point. Okay, this is very deep. By the way, I'm not saying this because I'm trying to argue against you. Okay, this things I have written a paper, cultural level quotient, which says people, everyone is trapped in his own culture. Every culture, the culture never change. Okay, therefore I think that China and the United States are all both are doomed. They cannot lead the world. We have to find a new world to inject in it new culture in order for the world to progress. Okay, in other words, this is related to this first point, the relationship to the past. We should try to sever this relationship so that young people can see a new world and that they grow by themselves. They grow by reasoning, a better way of reasoning. Okay, so the first point is extremely important, even though you mentioned as if it's just a relationship between father and children. That's a happy relationship. But on the other hand, the teacher, the parent, adult influence the children too much. It can drag down the progress of the society. Okay. Then you have a second point of entertainment. Okay, well, depending on how you look at it, you see, to have a entertainment, I just like entertainment. I spend a lot of my time doing entertainment, so I guess this is a neutral point. Then you mentioned this number 3 point, addictive, also lack of sleep. Okay, this addiction, people, like me, I'm following many very deep thinkers. Okay, and also people who are pretty much, you can say all of them are addictive. Okay, they're obsessed with something. Okay, so it's bad and it's good. Okay, but the good part would probably be extremely good. Okay, so in other words, their society, you can look among animals, they're totally useless. Okay, so you are trying to get them to be useful. Some people, if they don't want to, they just want to do what they do. They want to waste away their life. That I don't think that's such a bad thing, as long as the bell curve produce the good thing. Okay, so another, as a society as a whole, we want to tap the good parts. Okay, even though we might have more bad part. Okay, we want to stretch the good part as far as we can. The way to do is to give them freedom. Okay, to let them grow by themselves. Okay, so number 4 is no time to reflect on their behavior and the consequences. Okay, all this it's both good and bad. Okay, but to this item 9.4, again, it's a very fundamental question. If you allow them freedom, it will speed up their growth. Okay, some children will grow faster. Some children will grow slower. So you want to tap the good thing, those children who can be independent, who have more time to reflect. They they would be able to to learn this reflective thinking sooner when they're still young. Okay. In other words, freedom is it's a double-edged sword, but the society should tap the good part. Okay. So this go back to this very fundamental question. We need diversification so that we have produce some leaders, okay, not just everybody doing exactly the same thing. And again, number 5, social economic development. Okay, again, this, some children, if you give them independence, they will learn much faster than if you restrict them. Okay, so I'm sort of on the side of freedom. Okay, because you give people freedom and they think freely, even though many people would abuse the freedom or not know how to use it. But after all, we are all on this earth. Our destiny pretty much set. We need to trust ourselves. Okay, human being come to this earth. If we are built bad, we probably will destroy the earth. But if you build good, if a human being being designed to do good, then we should tap the resource and let the best among humans to develop fully. Okay, in the past we need to control. We need to in the past we need to gang up together, form tribes, so people can fight. Okay, this all this competition fight. Today we have much more knowledge. A child, you give him knowledge, he'll be much more valuable than in the past. Okay, again, the number 6, addictive traffic, in all these things. You see, addiction is a double-edged sword. So again, this is same as the previous addiction. Then you talk about number 7, mental health, brain development. Okay, I will say this is more stimulation, the greater will be the not the faster will be the growth of the child. Okay, and also unmonitored internet. You see, this again is this controlling the previous generation control the new generation is something that in my personal opinion, I'm totally against this. Okay, I just don't think. I think young people should let them grow. Okay, independent of the old ideas. Okay. Also, this number 8, no exercise. Actually, some people with a smartphone, they'll probably exercise even more. You see, number 9, again, go back to addiction. Okay, so it's the same argument. Then number 10, the idea of violence. Okay, so I guess people need to grow up. Violence is part of the growth. Violence actually is part of the competition. Okay, like war is the ultimate form of competition. They're fighting with their lives. Okay, so people need to grow, to really see things as early as possible, especially today. I'm really for young people to learn as much as possible and as quickly as possible. The smartphone will help them to do that. Okay, so today in the society, when I look around the young people, I see some people extremely, were knowledgeable. Okay, extremely knowledgeable. Some people, they follow the crowd. They want to go out to make money. Okay, they are another crowd. So I expect I have found a few people who are very super genius, but I think there's less really good people, but there's some extremely good people today. So it's kind of it's not a case of you who's right or wrong. It's a case of the fundamental belief, fundamental trust in human beings. Okay, and also trust in knowledge. Okay. Oh, okay. That's it.
Thank you, Honorable Opposition Leader of the Parliament. Now I request from the government side, Professor Rob.
The government respects Hugh's comments, and he makes a number of good points. But the idea of taking a child and putting them into a fire hose of knowledge without oversight or supervision would be incredibly dangerous, particularly given the amount of false information that exists on the web and in the environment today. Children have no ability to determine what is real and what is not real, and that's why the problem with coming in and violating the child-parent relationship is so problematic. Parents already have trouble with children, with oversight on children, and for good or ill, we still task parents with helping children with regard to their growth. But if they can't provide that supervision, if they're not able to step in, then we have upticks in suicides. We have the obesity and health problems, attention deficit disorders, and things that we really didn't have when I was a child. In fact, if we look at the leadership today, virtually none of them grew up with smartphones. They came up when they were older. So that smartphones arrived when they were older. And so the difficulty we've got is we don't really know what the impact on children are going to be when they become adults, but we've certainly seen the impact when they become young adults and they move into higher education. It has resulted in lower education scores. Certainly, cheating has gone up dramatically to a certain extent, thanks to smartphones and making it convenient. And the kids aren't learning what we need them to learn to have fulfilling lives. They're going wherever it is the entertainment goes. They're following the shiny object. But even if you spend any time on social media, you'll find there's not as much information that would help a child develop on there. Is there information we probably would just assume they not have? Information that pushes them towards false cures, false arguments, disruption, and a lack of conformance. Now, lack of conformance isn't necessarily a bad thing. We don't want, as you pointed out, we don't want Stepford children that just come up and are mirrors of their parents. On the other hand, we don't want rebels either. We developing an entire group or age of children that simply rebel against everything they see wouldn't be good for society. We need balance, and that means we need the children to be able to make intelligent decisions about the information they have, and smartphones don't provide that. There's no effort with the information that is presented on the web to assure that information that's being received is in fact accurate, let alone helpful for the child. Hugh argues that children should be allowed to develop their intelligence without oversight. We've never done that. There certainly is some benefit to throwing a child in the deep end of the pool in order to get them to learn how to swim, and children have learned how to swim that way. Unfortunately, a lot of children have drowned as a result of those behaviors as well. And the goal of government is to a large extent is to protect the drowning, to keep children from going and experiencing unnecessary risks, to protect them to a certain extent from themselves until they develop the capability of understanding consequences and making decisions that are in their own best interest. And certainly we've seen as adults develop, even as they get into their 30s, we can see that already, even without smartphones, a lot of adults don't develop the capability of being able to make decisions in their own best interest, and often destroy their lives before they become older. And smartphones aren't helping. Many of the benefits that we get from smartphones in children can be achieved with just regular cell phones. WHO identifies, the World Health Organization identifies 3 benefits for children. But 2 of the benefits, which really have to do with access to information, can be achieved with personal computers, which can provide oversight. And the 3rd, which provides children access to health and safety services, can be provided with a regular cell phone as well. They don't need the access to the internet. They need the access to 911 or the ability to call their parents and ask for help. And they can still do things like text on a regular cell phone without the screen and the internet access. So the government believes that by limiting children's access to the smartphone, it better assures the children's monitored development and assures the outcome we want, which is a child that can develop into an adult, that can have a meaningful life, that can have meaningful relationships, can have a family if they so choose, or not have a family if they so choose. And that choice is made based on what's best for the child and upcoming adult. It's not based on some internet trend or something that they saw on the web or some other thing that influenced them to take a path that may not be in their best interest. So in short, the smartphone provides a great deal of information, but often without context or focus. And when a child is young, they need that context and focus because they haven't learned how to delineate between information that is harmful for them and information that is good for them, and often jump to whatever's sparkly and shiny. And those sparkly and shiny things lead to things like substance abuse, obesity, behavioral problems, and rebellion. And we already have issues, of course, when children are growing up with rebellion anyway. We don't need to fuel rebellion in children. It tends to be a natural outpouring of their youth and growth. But we don't want to weaponize them. So the smartphone can easily weaponize the children by providing false information on subjects that would cause them to alienate or fight against their parents, who may in those cases be right. It would be different if the smartphone could, with some yet to be developed AI, provide a filter so that the child would be able to better learn how to filter that information themselves. But that tool does not yet exist. And the end result is we're asking a child that is unable yet to determine consequences because their brain isn't fully developed to make decisions that they are unable to make at that young time. And that the end result will be harm to their health, harm to their education, harm to their relationship with their families, and harm to their ability to develop a well-rounded and healthy life and lifestyle, and assure that if they want a family, they'll be able to roll into a family and develop a family and develop their own kids as successfully as their parents did. The smartphone, if it breaks that at the core, will lead to an endemic problem that is generational and moves through the family and hierarchy of the child as they develop, causing them harm even potentially well past their own lifetime. So again, the government believes that smartphones are harmful for children and should not be allowed to be delivered to children.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent speech. Now I request from the opposition side, Professor Ching.
I think we rotate to close. Are we going to close? He's going to have two sessions now, or do we rotate to closing? Because typically it's him and then I close.
Actually, you gonna close. So after him, you're gonna close the session.
Okay. So then these will be your closing remark. Your closing remarks, and then I'll close after. Okay.
Yes, Professor Ching.
Okay. Well, most children may need parental supervision, but if we check into history, okay, some of the greatest human beings, or actually contributors to knowledge, are children without being directly influenced by their parents. You check into history, okay. Those people who make, like Bertrand Russell, Charles Darwin, they don't, some of the philosophers, they don't have parents. The reason they're so successful because they don't have parents. Okay, so that this is I think in the future it will become more and more apparent. Okay, sometimes they have one parent, sometimes they have grandparents. Okay, grandparents are better than parents. Grandparents are older and they don't force their ideas on young people. Okay, so this point in the society will check into it. The society probably will refuse to accept this fact because it counter to the general consensus of parents. Okay, so this is it's a very important point, but I will go to even more important thing that I feel I need to conclude. The smartphone is just a small computer. Okay, so Rod, on this point, you need to defend yourself on this point, because what's the difference? It's more convenient. Okay, so let's skip this one, and it's not an important point. Okay, also Number three, smartphone is still new technology, which Rob and both agree. Okay. And eventually will mature. Okay. It will just become a more convenient computer. Okay. So it would definitely be more beneficial than harmful. So gradually, the argument will lean toward my side. Okay. The fourth point is the most important. Government is a no-no for USA. Okay. The United States is formed by the philosophy of John Locke. The idea of the republic is to have no government. Okay, the French Revolution already get rid of the kings, the emperors. No more government. How do you form a group of people without a government? That is what United States is trying to do. Okay, the United States, the new world. Okay, so this shows that we don't want to go back to the old ways of some government. Okay, Rob keep mentioning government. Okay, I think Rob is probably very law-abiding, very conservative type of person. He's a nice person, Probably not as, I'm not as nice as he is because I don't go for what other people say. Okay, but this government thing, people still don't realize this. Okay, the new world is the United States of America. Okay, the purpose of this new world is to have no government. You see, they keep saying small government. Actually, what they really want is to have no government. Okay, like Milton Friedman, his son David is for no government. Okay, his grandson, who's my close friend now, is for choice. Okay, that's very smart. Okay, so you can have either way. You just make your choice. Okay, I'm in the position of this. Okay, I'm in the position of society should be regulated by non-viable laws of nature. Non-viable laws of nature take the highest position. Okay, you got to obey laws of nature. So if laws of nature is what important in your society, then what's wrong with children use smartphone to learn laws of nature as quickly as possible? When everything is on the right path, then children try to get them to learn things as early as quickly as possible. That's the best. Okay, today I do say there's lots of things which are not really correct. So the parents will be the people who propagate this kind of wrong ideas. Okay, so people need to wake up. The government is really a real big point. Okay, the world does not realize that. Okay, eventually, like in science, I'm a scientist. In science, you cannot be a leader of the group if you're not a scientist. If you don't have a scientific knowledge, you cannot be. But in today's society, anybody, the less knowledge you have, the better politician you make. Okay, that is totally going in the wrong direction. Okay, eventually, if the society all have good, correct knowledge, then you want the children to learn as quickly as possible. You see, so it's a mess, and nobody really catch the idea of the United States, the new world, yet. But still, a lot of people come in. Okay, you look at the 5 largest companies, none of which is doing science. Okay, you can almost say that Europe is going down because Europe just get burdened by their scientific tradition. Everything has to be empirically verified. Okay, in United States, you look at the 5 Google, look at all these they have almost nothing to do with science. See, everything come out of their mind. It's all come out of free thinking. You see, and you look at Jerry Young. You see, Jerry Young, Google, Yahoo. He doesn't have a father. I don't want to. You look at Steve Jobs. He doesn't have a father. You look at Benzo. Amazon. He doesn't have a father. Okay, Rob. I don't mean to. I just want you to get started, to give me a hand in looking into all this history of what has really happened to our world. Okay, those people they control the biggest company, and why they can they control? Because they're in the new world. Okay, they are not burdened by science. Okay, they don't go to school. You see, Bill Gates only is a high school graduate. Okay, you look at these 5 companies, all of them they don't go for anything. The only person who, well, Elon Musk also didn't have a good relation with his father. Well, he's a loving mother. Mother is a model, so that's great. Nobody teach him anything. He teaches himself. Okay, so basically, this idea of being burdened by the past, also being cling to the government, have the government keep telling us what to do, is bad. But if you don't have a government, how do you regulate? Okay, that is the key question. Okay, in the old days, the divine laws of Augustine, Saint Augustine, divine law, that's long time ago, 500 years ago. Okay. Then there comes this, Karl Marx, okay, or actually Adam Smith, Invisible Hand. Okay, so there seems a hint of some non-viable laws of nature. Then Karl Marx come out with this idea of total planning, or not total planning. He doesn't know how to plan, but he got a rough idea. You need to regulate, rule by elite. Okay, all the best people in the society should rule the society. But who are the best people? You see, all this cannot be decided. Then Milton Friedman is closest to us. He said no laws. Human beings shall not make laws, which check with science. In science, the number of man-made law is exactly 0. Okay, now come to me. Okay, I say you need to figure out, discover non-viable laws of nature in social science as well as in science. Okay, then if we have these laws, they are non-viable, so we better observe them. They take the highest priority. Okay. Human being can make some laws, but after you follow the laws of nature. But once you follow the laws of nature, you find you will not be able to make any laws. Because human beings, when they make laws, they will come into conflict with the non-viable laws of nature. So society is going to develop in this direction, which no child is allowed to come to our group to learn what we think is the truth for the future. Okay, it just this. So therefore, this I'm glad that I'm an hour late to come to this session to have a chance to say some truth. Young people, if they listen to me, they will see a complete new aspect of this thing. Okay. They are not in the new world, so they think they still in your government. Okay. Even the United States government, they keep promote themselves so they can grow bigger and bigger. Things are not going in the right direction, and someday we need the new world. That's why I want Sheriff to look into that. Okay. So basically, that's my conclusion. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Our Honorable Prime Minister, for today's Parliament, we want to continue as we have more 20 minutes. If you allow me, we want to continue the third round of the debate. Or if you are busy, then I can go for
the closing remarks. That because I think we're beating a dead horse at this point. So moving to close. Hugh brought up the concept of philosophers and the fact they developed or the belief that they developed without their parents. I'm not sure there's a proof point there, but do realize that the philosophers that we know and that he cited, none of them had smartphones. The difficulty is that they separated from their parents, whether they did or didn't. It's that the information that they had access to is very different than the information that exists on the web today. We've had issues with regard to the web that include radicalization of children. School shootings have been traced back to their activities on the web. We've got the Instagram lawsuits that are kicking off in the United States as we speak from children that were damaged by their online access via their smartphones to applications like Instagram, which excessively focused them on their bodies and their development and led to eating disorders and serious behavior problems, and thus the lawsuits. We'll see how they turn out. But the clear harm of smartphones is evident. The benefits that you pointed out are not so much. Both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were pre-smartphone. I knew both men. Steve Jobs was badly damaged by his lack of parents as a child and very bitter about the fact he was abandoned. And it led to significant behavior problems and problems of abuse as he got into his later years. He was an extremely abusive manager and famous for that abuse. Bill Gates was in Harvard and doing very well when he was pulled out of Harvard to start Microsoft, help start Microsoft. But he came out with Steve Ballmer, who did finish Harvard and graduated at the top of his class. And that's what helped build Microsoft. Bill had the basic core skills necessary in software to understand how it worked. And you can develop an expertise in any subject without necessarily going to school. But there's no evidence you develop an expertise in any subject by having a smartphone. The work that was done traditionally. He was pre-PC. So Hugh's comment that a smartphone is just like a PC, it's just smaller and more portable is to point. But with regard to personal computers, parents can provide oversight and can restrict use to make sure that the child gets adequate sleep and can more easily make sure the child is not doing things that are inappropriate. But when the smartphone's on the child all the time and without supervision, then that kind of supervision cannot be applied, and clearly the children are getting into trouble when they don't have supervision. Now, supervision is a problem regardless of whether we're talking smartphones or anything else, because clearly the web is the dangerous part of this, and the smartphone just provides an unsupervised window into that web, which causes the problem. He pointed out the technology and smartphones will mature. I would argue that right now we're towards the end of life for smartphones, and we're looking for it to evolve into something else. We've got concepts like the metaverse coming forward, which will require a very different kind of technology than we have currently and require a more rapid evolution of the smartphone, particularly the human interface into the smartphone. But if we don't get our arms around this one, then that future capability, that metaverse capability, may result in more problems without benefits. To throw technology at children and say, hey, learn it, it's going to be good for you, without any kind of oversight, supervision, or assurance of that outcome is very dangerous. We wouldn't take a child and throw them into a car without training. We wouldn't give a child a gun without some oversight. Well, maybe if you were in Texas, which doesn't tend to end well. We wouldn't put a child in a plane and say, hey, learn how to fly. Good luck. It would all end very badly. Yet we take a child, we hand them the smartphone, don't provide them with any guidance or oversight, and then let them loose on the web. And then we're surprised that we have school shootings, we have obesity, we've got behavioral problems, we've got test scores that are falling. Granted, a lot of that test score falling stuff has to do with bad school curriculums, but the trends certainly appear to be more than coincidental and largely due to the fact that these kids have devices that neither the teachers nor the parents really know how to regulate and control. Finally, as we look at whether the children should have unfettered access to information, there are some good points there. Parents can be very limiting. Particularly parents that come up from religious backgrounds tend to take children and overly restrict them, and it can cause long-term problems for the development and advancement of society. However, taking those same children and introducing them to a lot of concepts without context can turn those children into major problems for society because they simply become rebels without any clear idea of what they're rebelling against. And so we take one problem, which is over conditioning, and we swap it for another one, which is lack of control. So replacing one problem with another doesn't advance our society. We need to advance the child and ensure that they learn the underlying skills that they need to move through society, of learning how to research a subject, learning how to tell the difference between real and false information are all critical to the child's development. And the smartphone not only doesn't teach that, it kind of prevents that from happening because it just inundates the child with information from all types, all sizes, whether accurate or not. And it can motivate the child to do things that not only the parents don't want, but the government doesn't want. He pointed out that there are a lot of people that argue against government in general. And we would agree, but since we are the government, we can't exactly take a position against government. That would be wouldn't be particularly helpful for what it is we're trying to accomplish. But in the end, developing a bunch of kids that just simply fight government isn't going to help us either. We need to advance society, not just advance conflict and wars. Wars do us no good. Conflicts, while in argument, are important to advance a topic, much like we are discussing a topic. But if it too quickly advances to violence, then you don't advance anything, and you run the risk now with weapons of mass destruction of doing significant damage to society. In fact, one of the problems we have with wars is very often, the longer we get away from a war, we forget the downsides to war and think that it's going to be convenient. That lack of understanding for our history does, in fact, result in us making the same mistakes in the future. Those that do not learn from history are cursed to repeat it. Is an accurate statement that we're watching play out in the world today. Russia's attack on Ukraine is largely the result of people making decisions, not recognizing how devastating to world economy wars can be, and allowing this one to happen, and now grousing about the fact that it has occurred. Taking an entire generation of kids and taking them away from history and having them simply focus on social media, on the topic of the moment, without any understanding of science, of history, of cause and effect, is incredibly dangerous because it develops children that are not able to do research, that are not able to understand the world that they're in. And while Hugh pointed out that maybe the laws of nature should rule how we make decisions, there's no evidence that kids are even, whether or not I agree with that, and I don't, but whether or not I would agree with it, there's no evidence that kids are learning those laws of nature, let alone would be able to apply them if that was the case. The issue with regard to smartphones or any unsupervised access to the web is the fact that there is so much information out there that is not true, but is incredibly attractive, that is developed specifically to catch the eye and to gain attention and to get clicks to drive ad revenue, is problematic. It is not focused on developing a child. It's not necessarily focused on harming them, but the kind of information that is most attractive tends to be the kind of information that's also the most harmful. And that lack of focus has created things like Facebook, which have caused huge problems for elections, governance, and social discourse. It's become a matter of fact. You look since the smartphones have happened, we don't really have a good process in governance. What we do is have two polarized areas where both sides scream at each other for long periods of time and nothing gets accomplished. That's not positive. That's not positive growth. We need to be teaching kids how to discuss things, how to argue a point, and how to research the point so they're well founded. And smartphones do the exact opposite. They throw lots of stuff at them without context and without foundation, which they then repeat without any understanding. And that creates problems for them in school. It creates problems for them at home. And it creates problems for them with regard to development. We get a bunch of adults that fundamentally can't make decisions based on facts. They're only making decisions based on feelings, and that would not be positive for society. So in the end, smartphones are not helping our kids. They're actually harming them, and they're harming our ability to develop our nations to become more successful. As we look at the recession that's spreading across the world and the problems we have in the world today, These are repetitive problems that we've had in the past, and showcase the fact that these smartphones and these computers and everything else are not teaching people what they need to learn to avoid the problems of the past. They're actually helping cause those problems to recur on a cyclical basis. So having children get unsupervised access all the time to the internet, we maintain is a bad thing, and therefore smartphones should not be allowed with children. The government rests.
Thank you. Thank you for your excellent speech. Yes, we are discussing very important aspects of the present norms of the children, activities of the children, and how it create impact for their in their psychology and the regular life. And specifically, you know that World Talent Economy Forums, we are advocating for modern science, engineering, and technology, and we are organizing this debate because we want to create a real awareness to the human development process. And you know, from the next month, World Talent Economy Forum, we are launching our operations in South Asia, because next year, March, we have one of the largest conference. Perhaps it's one of the largest conference in South Asia, because already 25,000 scientists, they join, and definitely we will organize debate there, our regular debaters, those who join in World Talent Economy Forum. And beside that, the world champions, we are inviting them in our debatings, and we will organize these things. And already many government agencies, corporations, and academy from South Asia, they actually collaborate with us, and we will train them. Whatever we are discussing, we will take actions in the grassroots level of South Asia. And beside that, we have more interesting aspect. We want to do more research with the collaborations of developed world. That's why we need more help from Professor Rob and Professor Ching. Because how we integrating our World Talent Economy Forums with the millions of people and the government agencies and largest corporation in South Asia, we need more of your support, and how you joining these World Talent Economy Forums, because we have a great audience regularly learning from you, and we are making our academic strategy based on this dialogue. So already Malaysia, we have 3,500 students. We are expanding these things. Next 2 weeks, we will collaborate with Japan. I believe that they have around 25,000 scientists with IU universities. And beside that, we will collaborate with Singapore. So hopefully it will be one of the largest think tank in Asia Pacific. And thank you for your continuous support through debating, through open dialogue, through consultancies. And I request all of our audience, those who need special support from our speakers, because they are scholars, they are contributing in a lot for human progressions, you directly can communicate with them. And definitely, I'm sure they're going to support your projects, your corporation, they will help you to solve your problem. Thank you, Professor Ching and Professor Rob, to joining today's session. I request all of our audience, please share our content with your government agencies, with your corporations, and with your academy. And if you want to collaborate with us, you directly can email us, and we are actually expanding our team. Those who want to join in our team to organizing conference, organizing academy, they can communicate with us, and they can, because we are actually growing very fast. We need a lot of volunteers and a lot of support. Thank you. Thank you for joining today's session, and thank you for your great debate. It will be great example for our youth community. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
All right.